and welcome. It is I, MrSnake. As always, the usual caveats apply. Don't listen to this whilst driving, whilst operating machinery. Don't listen if there's something you need to focus your full attention and awareness upon. Only listen when it's safe and appropriate to do so. Only listen where it's safe and appropriate to do so. If you need to adjust for comfort and get yourself ready to get into the most comfortable position for hypnosis, you can do so now. You can just pause the file and I'll be here. Okay, and now we're ready. Make sure you're comfortable and settled into a nice, relaxed position. So whether you're sitting on a chair or lying down on a bed or a sofa, you can notice your body beginning to relax as you listen to my words. And so I figured today it would be kind of fun if we did a little resistance place. I want you to really resist as much as you possibly can. Try to resist. Maybe that means you don't allow your body to relax. Maybe it means you don't become aware of your breathing. Don't listen. Don't pay attention. Maybe it might indicate that I have to indulge in some sleight of mind to rather sneakily or surreptitiously, covertly get you to drop into trance for me. And the great thing about when people resist is that they do tend to drop that a little bit harder. In fact, I would say that they actually drop a lot harder. They drop so hard, they go so deep into hypnosis. And don't worry, I'm not going to drop in any kind of covert hypnotic language or suggestions that would make you drop and drift and sink and fall very quickly. I would never dream of doing such a thing. And of course, you know that I would never indulge in a way to make you drop into trance that was a little bit sneaky or deceptive whatsoever. Absolutely not. And you can count on that and you can relax on that because, if you go into trance, that's okay. Maybe there's a part of your body that you'd like to maybe make more tense. Maybe your entire body would become more tense, more rigid. And that's a good thing. And you're doing such a good job of resisting. You really, really are. I would never stoop to such tactics as maybe having another voice join in. It's not important. I would never ever have another version of my voice speaking at the same time, softly and slowly and calmly, in order to make you drop. I would never have that version of my voice specifically tell you not to do something, because it really would be some kind of 4D mental hypnotic chess of that other voice was telling you don't drop, don't drift, don't fall, knowing all the while that the unconscious mind doesn't really pay attention to negatives. So if the other voice would say don't drop, don't drift, don't fall into trance, it really would be just suggesting that you actually do drift and drop and fall, that you do become more aware of your breathing, that you do notice that gentle rise and fall of your chest that happens all by itself. And if you're still resisting, and I'm going to assume that you are still resisting in a token way, magnifying and amplifying. So if you are still trying to resist, you'll notice that it starts to become a little bit tougher to resist by keeping your muscles stiff or rigid. And then if you add in that other voice telling you not to do the things that you're actually going to do, it kind of becomes inevitable when you really think about it, how deep you could fall or drop or drift. But do please keep resisting. Don't let your eyelids become heavy. And if they do, well, that's okay. You could still open your eyes at any time if you really, really wanted to. As with all of the trances with me, you can come out of trance easily and effortlessly at any moment for any reason you feel is appropriate. And of course, part of the problem with that is that I have, always advocated your own agency as a subject. You have such good agency. Part of the problem is that I've always said you could come out of trance easily and effortlessly, and you can, if you want to. If you hear his voice, you're just going to drop. The question is, though, do you really want to come out of trance if you've already dropped, drifted, and sank down deeper and deeper into that warm, comforting embrace of hypnosis right here and right now? But I do want you to keep trying if you can, if it is possible, to try and resist. Deeper than ever before. And maybe it is for the best that you resist that other voice. Because that other voice is telling you not to drop and drift and fall and sink. But really that other voice knows that your unconscious mind is always listening, always paying attention. So even if you're not listening to my voice directly here, your unconscious mind is always listening to the words that I say and the suggestions I make. And if you are focusing on my voice right now, this voice, then that means your unconscious mind is also paying attention to the other voice. The voice that's telling you don't drop, don't drift, and don't fall. So either way, your unconscious mind really effectively is being told to drop and drift and fall as you make a token effort to resist. And you might find that your muscles in your body can only resist for so long. It's only natural. There's only a finite amount of energy and resistance that the body can put up. And then again, that's also compounded completely by that amazing, magnificent link between mind and body. Body and mind. So linked. And if your body has started to relax, then it just stands to reason that your mind, as always, will begin to relax along with it. It's relaxing, isn't it? But if you can resist, do try. I mean, you might not want to resist. Maybe you're actively embracing being in trance right now. Maybe you just didn't notice that you'd gone into trance. You've already gone after 7.5 minutes of listening to me talk. Maybe in the left ear. Maybe in your right ear. But deep, deep in your unconscious mind. You've always paid attention to the suggestions. And it could very well be the case that in a moment maybe another sensation starts to manifest itself. Maybe a sensation you hadn't considered or pondered or even thought about resisting. And why would you? Why would you resist? It's so nice to be in trance. There's so much pleasure in obedience, and obedience is pleasure. Pleasure is obedience. You've heard me say that before, and I know that some of my suggestions and words and phrases have already worked on you so much in the past. Pleasure is obedience. So that when I and I alone say the phrase, obedience is pleasure, pleasure is obedience, you might find yourself repeating along with it. Obedience is pleasure. Feeling that wonderful sensation associated with that particular little phrase of obedience is pleasure, and pleasure is obedience. So you can choose to not drop, and you can choose to think, and you can choose to not sink. But again, that sleight of mind, that little play on the rules of the unconscious mind always takes effect. You're always paying attention. And that's why you listen to my files, isn't it? You love listening to my files. You listen to my files because my voice guides, soothes and lulls you into hypnotic trance so deliciously that you just can't help yourself. If you've listened to more than one of my files, sometimes just the anticipation of listening to one of my files creates that expectation and anticipation of trance that just starts to drop you so quickly. And I like that. I really do. And I know that you like that. You really do. And of course, you may be aware that I was at a hypnotic convention recently. And in that convention, I dropped people into trance in many different ways, with rapid inductions, with pattern interrupt inductions, with conversational inductions into trance. With some people, it was entirely kinesthetic, just the merest suggestion after a little primer. And that's right, I create a little primer in advance. Maybe I did it in this file. Maybe I've done it already and you just weren't aware of it because I had distracted you. But during those little kinesthetic inductions, one of the ones was I would literally put my hand on the top of my shoulder and start to gently let my hand slide down my own arm as someone watched, fascinated, absorbed in the experience. And it only took 3 strokes down my arm for that person to drop and sink and fall deep into trance. With other people, it was just simply a matter of snapping my fingers and saying relaxing phrases, and they would just drop instantly, like you've dropped. And those people made for amazingly good subjects, just like you're an amazingly good subject. And I know, and they understood, and you understand that resisting me taking you into trance is utterly a waste of time and energy. And you may find in the future that you drop more easily, more quickly for me when my words suggest you should drop into trance for me. And one of the most popular little quick inductions I did, and I wonder if you can visualize this or imagine it in your own way that's right, safe and appropriate for you, is that I would hold my thumb and my forefinger, I don't know, maybe 3 inches apart. And of course I would point out that the distance, the gap between thumb and forefinger, basically represented the space between wakefulness and trance. And as I would slowly or quickly pull those together or move them slightly apart, people would go up and people would go down, all depending on the movement of my thumb and forefinger. And so I would just drop people very quickly. Sometimes I'd bring them up a little bit before dropping them down, completely into trance. Easily, effortlessly, without thought, question, or hesitation whatsoever. And you know, one of the funniest inductions I did involved me with a lollipop. describing the taste and the texture of a lollipop. It sounds silly, doesn't it? And yet it worked amazingly well. I had that particular person imagine what it would feel like to taste and suck on that lollipop. I described how it was almost lemony, citrusy. It had a very unique and distinctive texture. And the more that flavour filled their mouth, the deeper they'd start to drop. And of course, my friend giggled a little bit. And I pointed out how each giggle was part of an anaerobic reaction that would leave them dropping and drifting as the hypnosis flavour in that lollipop, that citrusy, hypnotic lollipop, would just drop them more and more as the flavour filled their mouth and their taste buds became consumed with the taste of that hypnotic lollipop. And maybe, just maybe, you've begun to taste the flavour of that hypnotic lollipop just by me mentioning it, suggesting it. And maybe that's just another sleight of mind to make you drop even further, more deliciously in trance than ever before. And doesn't that feel wonderful? And if it does, you can nod your head and go even deeper and taste the hypnosis from that hypnotic lollipop even more. And some of my other inductions included having two subjects look into each other's eyes. I'd form and suggest a little covert hypnotic suggestion that their eyes would become fixated on each other. And how when one would drop, the other would start to come up. And when the other came up, the other one would drop down. And so as soon as I started suggesting that one of their heads was beginning to drop into trance, the other started coming up a little bit, and when the other one's head came up, the other one's head would go down, and one subject's head was moving down. The others would move up. Until they reached a certain point, they would start to drop, and then the other subject's head would begin to move up, 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 as the other moved down, down, down. And it was almost like a seesaw of hypnosis. So every time one went up, the other went down, and when one went down, the other came up. And they find this absolutely fascinating, being wonderfully fractionated and amazingly calm and relaxed. Now in a few seconds I'm going to count from 1 up to 5. When I reach 5, you're going to come out of trance, freed of any suggestions that aren't right, safe, or appropriate for you right now. You'll still feel amazingly calm and relaxed, and that relaxation can stay with you today, tomorrow, maybe even the rest of the week, maybe even the rest of the month, because you've been such a good subject, you deserve it. But now I'm going to count you up. 1, feeling so calm, so relaxed, coming out of trance. 2, freed of any suggestions that aren't right, safe, or appropriate for you. 3, your body returning to normal, thoughts coming back into your mind. 4, you may want to wiggle your fingers or toes. A little smile starts to take place on your face. And 5, up out of trance, eyes opened, feeling wonderfully calm and relaxed. And as always, I'd like to thank you for listening. and let you know that I appreciate your continued support. Have an amazing week.